From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
Thank you for downloading my podcast. My name is Rob Snowhite. That is my real last name. And this is the 10th year and the 233rd episode of my podcast. This episode features Joe Jackson, also known as Sgt Bass Fisher. Joe's recently become a household name in fly tying. Joe is a military veteran with a truly moving story about how he got into fly fishing. We'll discuss Joe's childhood and his military career post 9/11. To a near tragic ending before he found Project Healing Waters and fly fishing. If you know a veteran that is struggling, please provide them with support and suggest they try Project Healing Waters. In this episode, you'll learn about Joe chasing flashes of butter, his musical talents, family life with a supportive wife, and how he plans to tour the country with his kids in a new band called the Jackson 5 as they sing their new hit song, I Want You, Flashback. I have spent a lot of time this past spring in my Stealthcraft ATB. It is definitely my happy place. I feel home in my boat. And our good friend Dirty Bill is the proud owner of a Stealthcraft boat. It's a good thing he didn't give birth to it. Am I right? Let's hear a little from Dirty Bill about his new ride.
Hi, my name is Mike Deo, owner of Dirty Bill's Guide Service. I've been a drift boat guide for the last 10 years on the Salmon River in upstate New York. And this year I purchased a Stealthcraft boat because their attention to detail and frankly the over-engineering of everything in this boat, from the rod holders to the tie downs to the seat configuration, is just amazing. It kind of makes other drift boats seem a little silly after I've rode this one. Stealthcraft Boats of Baldwin, Michigan. Check them out.
All right, we have Sergeant Joe Jackson with us. Are you a member of the Jackson 5?
Not anymore. I was booted.
Okay. We got Dr. Dre out there. He's not a real doctor. Just want to make sure you're a real sergeant.
Yes, sir, I am. Well, I was 4 years ago when I got out.
All right, we'll get to that in a bit. And I usually ask people for their doppelganger as they can't see us while we're doing this. But I already have yours. I mentioned this once. You showed a picture of yourself clean shaven, and you look like a young Andy Serkis, the guy who played Smeagol and a bunch of other things.
Well, hell yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome.
All right.
My bad.
It's all right. That's one of the words that's okay. What other doppelgangers have you been told you might look like?
Well, I used to model, and that's weird. But I had one particular photo where I'm wearing sunglasses and no shirt, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, you look like Eric Church. And I was like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know Eric Church either.
He's a country music guy.
Okay.
He always wears a ball cap. I guess that's why.
Yeah, a lot of the new ones don't wear the country hats anymore. They do the baseball hat.
Yeah.
The country singers. All right, well, let's find out all about Joe. So for those that don't know, I met Joe at the Lancaster show about 2 years ago, maybe. And we started talking, and I decided I think now would be a good time to get your whole story told. So where are you right now? Where are we talking to Joe Jackson?
I'm in Martinsville, Indiana, sitting in my tying room, cranking out 50 parachute rusty white knots.
I'm not sure what that is.
It's a fly. I didn't know what it was till this morning. But it's an au sable fly. It's a mayfly, spent mayfly. It's real big, size 12, size 10. I got asked to do it because there's deer hair in it. So
right on. And I hope your office is nicer looking than mine. Mine's got a particular odor to it right now, so I've got the windows open.
I had a buddy give me a bunch of old tie-in materials, some like capuchin monkey and some polar bear. And so my room smells like mothballs hardcore right now.
Capuchin monkey, what does that get used for?
I don't know. He gave it to me, and it's really unique. It's kind of orangish, brownish red. It's barred, and I'm going to use it for little teeny parachutes because it's only like ½ inch long. and tailing material.
All right.
Wise. So
I,
I'll
I-
shoot you. I'll cut you a patch off. Send it to you.
sure. I've had experience with capuchins before. I met one in the Amazon named Christian, and he liked to knock over my cups of hot chocolate and drink them. He would come out of the rafters at the lodge we were at, and he would knock over your food and steal stuff off your plates and then scurry back up. He was obnoxious.
Sounds like my kids.
Yeah. All right, so where did you grow up? Are you from Indiana? And if we're going to throw a dart at your town you're in now, what is that near? Any landmarks where out-of-towners might know?
If you follow the White River south of Indianapolis for about 40 miles, that's where I'm at.
Okay. And we decided you're a couple hours from Columbus. So at some point, I don't know if I can make it out there like we tried last year. Maybe we can meet like halfway in the middle.
Yeah, I need to get out
Sometime
that way
fish.
anyway and fish with my friend Tony from Simperfly Fly Rods. And it'd be cool to get both of you guys together at the same time. Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, I met them at the Lancaster show this past year.
He's a really cool guy. I invited him out to a show we had here in Indiana. And he showed up, and he had a 7-weight bronze back Simperfly rod with Sgt Bass Fisher on the side, and I was casting it, and then he's like, "Oh, this is your rod." I was like, "Holy cow!"
What?
It's one of my favorite rods. It's my favorite smallmouth rod. It just does the job. And when I was out in the southeast New York this weekend at Daddy Flies, I took it there, and it was fun. It's good for throwing big meat streamers and still got a soft tip.
Oh, could use that today, but we got skunked on the water today. It was rough. But we were using big rods and big sticks and big flies today. Nothing wanted to eat them.
Out for?
They wanted snakeheads. They live on a body of water called Little Hunting Creek. It's right at Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
And they live on the water, which means they have access to the boat ramp. There's really no other way for me to get there because I've got a small outboard. And I can't get to it from a boat ramp. So we went up this mostly private little creek that doesn't get a whole lot of traffic. A lot of bass boats will come through, but we didn't see anyone today. We were fishing lily pads and docks and under boats and along structure, beaver dams, and got a couple blow-ups, but nothing. And the water was like fishing in like it was pretty like Hershey's milk looking.
Yeah, that
doo-doo brown.
Rain. This spring, just like the last 3 springs, has been terrible. You guys are getting swamped. I'm getting swamped, losing money.
We just pulled about 3 pounds of strawberries out of our backyard. We're doing like a spaghetti pot full a night of strawberries right now. The rain was good for strawberries.
Yeah, the kids were out there earlier picking some more. We got a teeny patch. We've only lived here for a year now, so ours is just getting established.
We have 100 square feet of strawberry plants.
Holy cow!
It is
awesome.
enormous. I stopped counting at, I think, 80 plants. I was like, this is just too much. So we got a good crop.
How many did you plant to start out with?
We inherited them. They were with the house. So we decided the house was called Strawberry House. My daughter named it that when we moved in. So I still want to get that sign out front of like a strawberry drinking a martini. I think that'd be a cool little pub sign for the house. Well, let's talk about your fishing. Have you always been an angler?
Since I was about 4, my mom got me out fishing. That's just what we did on the weekends. We'd go camping and fishing. Started out like everyone else with a bobber drowning a worm. Then, when I was probably 7 or 8, I got in tackle fishing for bass because I had found like a chartreuse grub lead head jig in the river where someone littered or just lost it. Tied it on my little Zebco and I started tossing it out this little beach area at this local lake, and I hooked me like a 14-inch largemouth, and I was like, I was 7. I was like, this is like the biggest fish in the world, or the biggest largemouth I ever seen at that point. I just got obsessed. I spent most of my years as a kid, if it was too cold or too rainy to be out fishing, I was reading my North American Fishing Club books that my mom bought me every month on a subscription.
That's awesome that she was supportive of it all.
I'm actually going to fish with my dad for the very first time this summer. Never fished with him. He's in the military. And it was like polar opposites. My mom's sort of wild and out in the woods, and my dad's, super strict work. And so I got the best of both worlds. And I got my discipline from my dad, and my demeanor, and my love of the outdoors from my mom.
When did you start getting into the fly fishing? Was that something your mom introduced you to?
No, I actually introduced her to that last year. But fly fishing, I've only been tying and fly fishing since I think it was November of 2015. So this November will be my 4th year tying and fly fishing.
That's pretty nuts that you're doing stuff that most people spend a lifetime trying to learn, and you've only done it in, the amount of years I can count on one hand.
It's complete therapy for me. I didn't anticipate getting any attention from it. It's the same thing with a bunch of the guys like Lee Barbi and Raymond Collette. They don't, John Demuth, they're not like trying to make a huge name for themselves. I can just sit in my room and get completely lost, and then the whole world just dissolves. But I got into fly tying and fly fishing through Project Healing Waters. That's a good story. I've talked to you about the story.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. But were you an artist growing up? Like in high school, did you take art classes? Because there's deep inside of you, there's an artist that.
Yeah.
Did it come out recently in the last 5 years?
I was a tattoo artist for a while. I painted my whole life and drew. I doodle all the time. But I don't know. I've just always been an artist, sort of, on my own. I guess.
Doodle your flies to see, draw them firsthand and see how they're going to come out?
No, I just sort of, like when it comes to my display flies, I just, I do some unique things. I'll like someone wanted a cardinal. Cardinals are easy. They're all red and black. And so I just put a bunch of hair on a hook and trim it that way. I like working with clay as well. So that really, like Pat Cohen said, deer hair is essentially just you're painting with hair and then you're sculpting out the body.
Right.
Just like, and I can't put it any better way. It's perfect what he explained it.
Would you ever cut someone's hair if they're like, yo, man, I want to have a flamingo hair cut, and you like make a flamingo out of someone's hair? Like give them a buzz cut, but shape it?
I could do that.
That'd be pretty sweet.
It would be tough. It would take me a lot of hours and they get tired of sitting there, but like once I started, I won't stop. It's funny you said flamingo. That's one of my next big projects. I'm going to make a 12-inch tall flamingo with deer hair and hooks and shanks.
That's going to be cool.
For my mother-in-law.
Nice.
She don't know.
Does she listen to podcasts?
No, actually, I got my in-laws into fly fishing as well. But she reads a lot of books, but I haven't got them into the podcast. My father-in-law listens to yours and the Orbis podcast because they're learning. And
that's awesome.
They're super supportive of what I'm doing. When I'm not getting fly orders, my father-in-law has me out. He owns an electrical business, and I'm handy, and I know how to build houses and do electrical work. So he'll have me out. That's what I was doing all day today. We were out there finishing a bathroom we remodeled, and then I come home and tie flies.
Sounds like a good afternoon.
Yeah,
it's good fun. That you've got those skills.
I don't. My wife and my brother just call me a jack of all trades. I get obsessed with things. I get really good at them. I've been playing drums for like 29 years and guitar, and I play with clay, and I do all this randomness. I like flower gardens and making flowers grow. And I don't know if you know this. I'm a nerd for mushrooms, wild mushrooms and foraging. I know most all the edible mushrooms in the Midwest. I know their Latin names. Like a lot of the dry fly guys know all the dry fly hatches by their scientific names.
Do you ever find porcinis?
Not down here. I know in the Pacific Northwest, they're pretty thick up there. But our porcinis, it's weird when you get them from a store because they're all the porcinis, the baby bellas, the portobello mushrooms, and the white button mushrooms. They're all Agaricus biporous mushroom, except they're grown in different conditions.
And they're all irradiated before they get to the store.
Yeah, it's weird. They grow the white ones in dark tunnels, and they grow the portobellos with UV light. And the porcinis, I think they grow them with very little water. I'm not quite sure on the porcinis, but...
We could do a whole fungus episode.
Oh, yeah, I'd have to get my brother involved in that. He knows a lot.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, you guys are awesome.
He does the plants, and I do the mushrooms, so... Spring salads are awesome because we just hit out in the woods and find trout lilies, trilliums, and all these cool little plants and edible mushrooms, and make a cool salad.
All right, this is good. I need to stop the conversation because I'm going to go on a tangent with you for an hour about plants and stuff. Let's talk about like growing up and then going into your military career. How did you decide to go into the military, and how old were you?
I was 17 when I enlisted, and I think my wife's out back mowing grass. I don't know if you can hear that.
We can hear it a little bit.
Okay, good. As long as it's not bugging you. I enlisted when I was 17. I had 1 year of high school left. My dad was in since before I was born, so I was destined for it. 9/11 happened. That was something I had to do. I loved it. I was in for 14 years.
Which branch of the military?
The Army.
What'd you get? How many like countries and stuff did you go see in that time? Did you see the world?
The ones we just stopped in and left, and all the countries I actually lived in, it was like 17, I think.
Wow.
My favorite was Turkey and Ireland. They're just absolutely gorgeous. Turkey is beautiful, especially after spending a year in the desert, and you get out there and you're like, wow, I didn't expect Turkey to be so green.
And then you get to Ireland and you're like, wow, this is completely green.
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan for 9 months when I flew into Ireland, and I was like, it's so bright green, it just like hurt your eyes.
And what was your role in the military?
I was an infantry guy, bullet sponge.
Bullet sponge. I've not heard that before.
11 Bravo, boot bangers.
Okay. And then what age were you when you got out?
I was, about 4 years ago. I was 29, 30.
Oh, you're still young.
Yeah, I turned 35 next month, so.
Okay.
I got out July 24th, my dad's birthday, ironically.
And then what led you from that to Healing Waters? Were you injured? Was it more
well, I got
mental?
strong in getting out. I had been injured in a Humvee. My back and neck were real jacked up, and I had a pretty traumatic TDI. They allowed me to stay in, but the commander I had at the time, I had a piece of paper, and I had to get it signed by a doctor to stay in. He wouldn't sign it at the VA, so they forced me out, and then I was a civilian.
Are you still feeling the effects of those injuries?
My neck and back hurt constantly. I'm not into taking narcotics, so ibuprofen and Excedrin will get you through, I promise. I just work out, stretch, and try to stay healthy. I'm sure you notice after you spend more than 3 minutes with me, I always like pop my neck real fast. It's like a weird twitch.
That just relieves momentarily?
Yeah, I don't think about it anymore. I just do it. It's just, it's all my vertebrae right there are just uncomfortable. Ouch. The VA is still hashing it out. I have to go in and get, they do like acupuncture stuff now, I guess. Put probes on my back and shock me and stretch me out all the time.
Crikey.
It's actually relaxing. It really does make it quit hurting for like the day.
Well, that's good.
But
how did you get involved with Healing Waters? Did you see something at the VA?
Yeah, I got voluntold to go to the VA.
Voluntold?
Yeah, I had a situation where life was just sort of crumbling around me, and I just sort of wanted to end it, I guess. I was pretty weak at that point. I don't remember much of it. I don't drink at all, but at that point I was smashing booze constantly. Just sort of my coping mechanism. I got my first job as a civilian at a factory, and I worked there for a week or two, and they put me on full time. So I went from like $9 an hour to like $16 an hour. And then after 90 days, they made me a team leader. So I went from like 16 to 20 something an hour. It was good for a year, and then one of my lines made a terrible mistake. Cost the company like $150,000, and it really bugged me. So it was the first time they got to see Sergeant Jackson, and I brought the knife hand out and I was lecturing everybody, and they didn't like it. They didn't like what I had to say. They were all privates to me at that point. I was just giving them a good tearing into, So I got canned from that, and then I was like, whatever. I got money saved up. I'll just roll with it. And so I just spent most of my time at the gym, and then everything went bad from there with the girl I was dating. I was over it, tried to end it. Drank a bunch of booze and ate like 2 bottles of aspirin,
Oh my gosh.
right off. My buddy Bobby walked up in my house because we were supposed to be going to the gym. And that's like what we did. We just lifted for like 6 hours a day and got real jacked. He walked in, I was all covered in blood and like passed out. Like blood everywhere, he said. He's like, it looks like you.
Just coming out of like your nose? Your mouth?
No, my arms and everywhere, really.
Oh, God.
I got all emo, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
I wasn't strong enough, thank God, to put one in my brain. I was just over it. So he called the cops. A police officer showed up. He was a young guy, and he knew I was in the military for a really long time. And he drew down on me when I was there because I was kind of agitated, I reckon. I sort of just palmed his pistol and twisted it and took it
my God.
back in the head. And right about that time is when I passed out. My friend Bobby is one of my dear friends, but he's like, man, you disarmed and assaulted a police officer. He called another police officer. He said he wasn't going to try to get involved. I don't blame him whatsoever. He's a real good guy. I woke up at the hospital with a police officer with a bandage around his head. I guess what happened was he woke up after I knocked him out, put me in his car, and drove me to the ER. And then he sat with me all night while I was getting these blood transfusions, and they were detoxing me. Sat all night. It was about 8 or 9 hours. So when I woke up, I looked at him and I asked him what happened. He told me, he's like, you got a couple options. He's like, I got 1 year and 1 day to press charges. He's like, and you're going to be looking at like a lot of prison time.
So was he there to look after your well-being, or was he waiting to be a police officer when you woke up?
He stayed there on his own accord. Wow. He never pressed charges. He said, I can go to the VA and get psychological help. He's got it all set up to where I go there 3 times a week. He did that overnight. And so the very next day, 2 days later when they released me, I went to the VA in Indianapolis, and I'm not a big, and then you wouldn't know me then. I wasn't a big talker. I didn't like people. I thought everybody was stupid. They irritated me. I was just a loner. I went in there and I saw a flyer for Project Healing Waters. It was like fly fishing and vets. I was like, fishing and veterans, that's something I could do. So I took a screenshot and went to my therapy appointment, sat there for an hour without saying anything. And on my way home, I called up Rich, who was a project lead here in Indianapolis. And they had, let's see, what my timeline. So they had a tying event a week later, which would have been November 17th, 2015, I think. It would have been that week. We always meet up on the third weekend. So it was a Saturday, and I met up with them at the VA. It was crazy. Yeah, I titled my first wolf fly. It was a woolly bugger, and I thought they were just like touting on me, like trying to motivate me to stick around. But they said it was real good. And then, and I just kept tying. I tied like every day. It was pretty crazy. I met my wife. I met her shortly thereafter, and she's a saint. She didn't allow me to have a job. She told me just to stay at home, and as we were dating, she told me, because I was living with my brother because I had to move to Indianapolis because it was like a 2.5 hour drive to Indianapolis. I was having to make 3 times a week.
Wow.
So I stayed home with my brothers, and eventually I moved in with Megan, and I stayed home and tied. And then I found deer hair. Deer hair is what I needed. Tying was awesome. Fly fishing was awesome. Being around veterans was awesome. This deer hair was what I needed because I needed a way to let out my anger. Putting deer hair on a hook for 2 hours when you're starting out and being so proud of that giant mess you just made and then cutting it with a razor blade and having it explode in your face will tick you off. And it set me in such a ball of rage every time. It was really awesome to rage on something that was inanimate and not somebody. And I just sort of started obsessing with it. And, after my first 8 months of tying, I submitted 4 flies to the Project Healing Waters tying contest. A few months later, I got a call from someone in Healing Waters said I placed in the top 5 nationally. And I was like, I hung up on him because I thought it was one of my buddies joking around with me. And then he called me back and he's like, my name's Duke Davis. I'm with Project Healing Waters. You placed top 5 in the nation. I was like, what was my fly? He's like, a little deer hair hopper. I was like, okay.
You're legit.
What do I do now? And he's like, well, we're going to pay for everything. You're going to go to the International Fly Tying Symposium. And you're going to tie flies, and you're going to find out who placed 1st through 5th. So I went there. Crazy.
Was that the one in Lancaster?
It was in Lancaster that year. And then I met you 3 months later in March at the Lancaster show.
Right. And your deer hair stuff was nuts.
Yeah, it was weird. My daughter asked me to tie hummingbird. And so I made a hummingbird. And, Duke was like, hey, you need to bring some flies to display because you're going to be tying in front of all the A-list fly tyers and big companies of the world. I was like, all right, no pressure. So, at that point, the only display quality fly I had was a couple divers and the hummingbird. I didn't think nothing of it. And then, I showed up early the morning we were tying because I was super nervous. And I set up my booth and I started tying before anyone else was even out and about. And you were probably getting ready to make a bacon sandwich at Lancaster show. I remember that podcast. But I was out there tying, and Bob Clauser and Joan were the first ones to walk through. And Bob Clauser, I didn't really know who he was at that point. I didn't know what he looked like. I knew who Bob Clauser was, but Joan was like, "I want that." I was like, "That ma'am, that's the only one I've ever tied. It's for my 2-year-old daughter." She's like, "Well, would you tie me one?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I tied her one. I gave it to her, and Bob asked for 5 of my other flies if he could buy them. I was like, "You can have them, sir." He's like, "Great." He's like, "They're gonna go in my I don't remember what he called it. It's essentially a war room, just his display room." So my first show was at the International Fly Tying Symposium. The first people that ever just took my flies to have was Bob Clauser and Joan Clauser. And then it really just took off from there. It was overwhelming.
And we have one of your hummingbirds on display in our kitchen.
That's awesome.
A lot of people ask about it. And I'm like, this is handmade from deer hair. And they're like, excuse me? I'm like, yeah, Sgt Bass Fisher. He carves these out of deer hair. And people are just like, what the... Because it doesn't look like anything I do. People see my flies laying around the house, and they're like, uh-huh. And then they see that, and they're like, what? That thing is impressive. And what's the beak on it again?
Originally, on the first one, it was a toothpick. And then when I told Joan I would tie her one, Bob came back a little bit later, and he threw some porcupine quills on my table and was like, here, use those for the beak.
Because every fly fisherman walks around with porcupine quills?
No, there was a Fly Shack. Fly Shack had them, and he was over there looking around at Fly Shack before the show started, and he saw him. He's like, oh, that would be a cool beak. And so he gave them to me, and I use them on a lot of things. I still use the same pack that he bought me because there's 500 porcupine quills in there.
I've been by Fly Shack for years. I've never seen porcupine quills. What else are they used for?
Lee told me I can use them for extended bodies. Because they're hollow. They're sort of hollow. They got it's almost a foamy material on the inside, and they'll collapse on a hook. So you have that little tip that you can work with to create extended bodies.
Interesting.
I haven't done it yet.
But you're making hummingbirds out of them. That's pretty novel.
The beak of my kingfisher, the hummingbird. What else have I used it for? I don't know. The pileated woodpeckers I've done.
The blue one, I love the bluebird you did. Was the blue jay or was it a kingfisher?
Kingfisher.
Kingfisher. Yeah, that was really cool. And for people that you want to pause and go see these, you're on Instagram as Sgt Bass Fisher.
Yeah, sgt.bassfisher.
Okay. Everyone go pause, go look, go follow, and then play the podcast again.
And then listen to it again after that.
That's right.
That's what I do with your smallmouth and carp podcast. I've listened to him like 200 times.
Awesome. Thank you.
I love those science. I'm a nerd, man. I love biology.
I'm working on another one, but I am working every day right now that I don't have time to get stuff done.
That's how I am. I'm swamped. I got, let's see, today I have a cardinal and a hummingbird order, 6 Sgt Bass Fisher mop frogs, 50 of these rusty white knot dry flies.
How long does it take to do an average bird fly?
Between 2 and 6 hours.
Wow.
The pheasant and the kingfisher are difficult. I think the pheasant has like 17 colors of deer hair blended in it, and the kingfisher's got 14 or 15.
Where did you learn to do the deer hair? Do you have influencers? Did you look at YouTube tutorials? How long did it take before you could actually start cranking it down on a hook and carving it and it would look like something?
Well, I looked at books, the Dave Whitlock book I had, and that's how I learned the basics. And one of my buddies and one of the volunteers from Project Healing Waters was like, took notice of what I was trying to do. And he's like, hey, next month I'm going to bring you something. So next month I show up and he's got like 3 Pat Cohen DVDs. He's like, take these. So I watched the first one for the diver, which divers are my favorite. They're so much better than poppers. We'll go into that later. But he gave me these DVDs. I watched the first one like 4 times. I was like, so many things I was doing wrong. Like, he's got it down to a science, and he explains it so well. Pat Cohen does. So I started using his method and stacking, and that's what I'm pretty much doing now. I have a few little things I do differently, but his method's so good. And everybody noticed the difference in my deer hair. And then I put a 4/0 hook underneath my thumb knuckle one day where I was packing hair. Ooh. And my wife's like, you need to go out and get Pat Cohen's Fugly Packer. I was like, you don't have to tell me twice. I'll go buy one.
I'm looking at mine right there. I have never used it, but I have one.
Oh, you got to. It's good. We'll Skype on video one day and we'll run through it. I'll teach you how to do Hummingbird.
Oh my gosh.
But they're one of the easier flies I do. But I tell you what, I got that Fugly Packer and I tied 2 flies with it, posted on the internet, and everybody was like, dude, you have mastered deer hair. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. All I did was buy a tool. But it really, really makes a difference. That thing, it's like racing, going like on a country road racing someone that's driving a Corvette and you're driving a Chevette, compared to a Brassy. That thing just packs hair, saves your fingers. So many times I should have just punctured my hand with a big old hook, but it bounces off that. But it really made a difference in my tying. Everybody's like packing them so tight now, and I started selling flies. I tied, one of Pat's punk rockers, and everybody loved it. I tag Pat in everything that I do that's his, because it's just, I don't like artistic thieves. He's super cool, and I could message him and ask him a question if I was stuck on it, and he would let me know. Super good dude.
I just found a new idea for the hair packer. Come here, little one. Talk to Joe. Tell Joe what you just asked me to do. Talk in the microphone.
Yank out my tooth.
Say it again.
Yank out my tooth.
She wants me to yank out her tooth.
That is an awesome idea.
The problem is I don't do teeth.
Aw.
Like wiggly teeth is some nastiness.
I would do it. I'm like 700 miles away. Can I use your idea for my daughter's tooth one day?
He's going to take it out with his daughter's tooth. With that green tool right there. Go grab that. Careful. You're in here barefoot. You just stepped on it. There's a size 4 streamer hook she just stepped on.
No.
Here, this tool. Hold on.
I got 4 kids. It's chaos all the time. They all want to tie
4
with
kids,
me.
man. See, you are the Jackson 5. You got to get them in a band. All right,
Well,
Kiersey,
actually,
out. I'm busy. Scram, kid.
We got them all playing music already.
Jeez. My kid, I don't know what her talent's going to be. Annoying me.
Oh, they're all good at that. That's their evolution.
Yeah. Where do you procure your deer hair? Is that something that you need to go through and look at before you purchase it, or can you buy it sight unseen and then go through and look at it?
There's places you can get really good deer hair, and if you do get bad deer hair, there's a lot of things you can do with it. I get all my deer hair now through Nature's Spirit, Jay Stockard, and Wapsie. Another good place is Pat. Pat only sells premium belly hair. It's top notch. You don't get a bad patch, but I don't get much bad deer hair from any of those people, any of those companies. When I do, I'm generally pretty excited because I got a use for it. Like with natural hair, if you get some really just stuff that's too skinny and it doesn't flare as good as you want, or it's too smooth and it's not got that nice rough texture you want on really good stacking or spinning hair, you can use it for mice patterns. Really, really skinny, like stimulator hair, you can use for stimulators, obviously, but really crappy belly hair you can use for dry flies.
What about the cleanup? Do you end up inhaling deer hair?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be gross, but when you're in the bathroom, do you look back and you're like, oh, I was tying a blue deer hair yesterday?
I got a good example of that for you. Last summer, the kids were being super good all day, and I had an order of pink and purple flies for casting for recovery. It was all deer hair. So I told them if they gave me 3 good hours of time without bugging me, I would take them out for ice cream. So I had finished up the last fly, and I announced to the whole world that I was done because I was tying really fast, and I was tired of it. So the kids were all fired up to go get ice cream. So I was like, right on, I'm not taking you out to get ice cream. I'm going to go to Walmart and get some. Then we're going to come home and play in the yard. So they all were laughing at me the whole time. My daughter, she would have been 4. She's a goober. She was just laughing at me, calling me a girl the whole time. And I was like, okay, whatever. This is a funny joke on me, apparently. Yeah, everybody was snickering at me. I got home and I looked in the mirror. I had pink and purple clumps of deer hair in my beard. And I was rocking around Walmart and the gas station with it in my beard.
And they knew it but didn't say anything?
They did not tell me.
That's funny.
I wouldn't have either because that's funny.
Kids.
But, yeah, they cracked. I mean, it's crazy. They love fly fishing and tying. So I've kind of got it made. My wife ties with me. I use a reward system over video games. I'm just trying to make the video game obsolete to my kids. So the real reward in the house is getting to use your fly rod or getting to sit behind a vise with dad and mom.
I might have to
they're all making
that.
grades and being good just to get vice time.
Nice.
Took me a long time to manipulate that situation.
What vice brand do you use and what model?
Right now I have 3 Regals. I'm on Regal's Pro Team. I'm using the one that I won in the fly tying contest right now, the little traveler with the Healing Waters medallion.
That's the one you thought you lost?
Yes, someone accidentally grabbed it. I was overwhelmed by I was the new kid on the block. We thought someone snatched it up. It was brand new, and there was 30 people that reached out to me and was like, hey, I want to send you a vice. I want to send you a vice. And then my vice was found, and so I had to message all those people back and be like, no, we found it. We found it. Thank you so much. And I was overwhelmed by that. It was my first real taste of how caring and awesome the fly fishing community is. Welcoming, really.
Yeah, I like that about all of us. We help people out. We got each other's backs.
I know. I love that. And it's like I can go anywhere in the United States and be like, hey, get on some forum, be like, hey, what's hatching? Or hey, what's good? And someone will be like, hey, link up with me. We'll do this or whatever, Or they'll be like, hey, stay off of water. Either or. But my vice I'm using for deer hair is a vice I got from my friend Al Fish. He's taught me a lot. He's in our Indianapolis Flycasters. The one that gave me the capuchin and the polar bear.
Right. And his name is Fish?
Yeah, Al Fish. Alan Fish. He's a super good dude. Everywhere I go in the United States, somebody knows Al. It's crazy. Fishy Folum was I told him I was at the Indianapolis Flycasters, and he's like, "Oh, Al Fish, he's crazy." And then, Bob Clouser out there, and then I go down south, and Tony Spezio's like, "Oh, Al, he's one of my good buddies," and he gave me a Regal Vice. It's 27 years old.
The round knob handle.
Yep, it is.
It shows you just how well those things are built.
It's what I tie. It's got the bigger jaws on it, but they're a little different shape. It's weird, but I love it. It's strong still, and I've been only using a Regal for 2-3 years now. Well, 2 years, 3 years. 3 years ago, I was using a Peak, and I like it too. But I mean, I just prefer the Regal.
Yeah.
Mine's
right here. Mine's
good.
Yeah, just easy in and out.
My daughter, I was doing a video on YouTube, and she was tying, and she wanted to do a live video, and she was telling everybody about the partridge hooks I use, and I asked her why she likes the Regal the best, and she tried to squeeze the handle. She's like, "'Cause it's so strong." And so I posted that on Instagram, and it got a bunch of likes. A couple days later, Steve from Regal reached out to me and was like, "Hey, would you like to join our pro team?"
Nice.
I attribute
Chalk
that
it up
to
to
her.
the kid.
I think.
Yeah. And so you're a fan of the partridge hooks?
Yeah, I'm with Willow Emop Creek. Is the first company that was like, "Hey, we'd like you to join our Prostaff team, and we like what you're doing, and we're gonna give you discounts." So I was like, "Hey," I did not reply to that email for like 5 months because I thought it was spam. And then I was talking to John Collins on Facebook, and I mentioned it to him. He's like, "Oh, that's Joe Fox, man. He's a real good dude.
So
you should definitely go for that." So I reached back out and joined him.
So far, you've hung up on people, and you haven't replied to their emails when they're helping you.
Hey, I'm still healing. I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
But I'm a lot better. I couldn't do this podcast 3 years ago.
I'm glad we can do it now.
Yeah, it's fun. I like teaching. I'm obsessed with teaching people. I think that's why so many people are starting to like me, because I like teaching. And I don't have any secrets, and it's been crazy. I've been in Arkansas, Missouri, Michigan.
You just went to New York?
I just went to New York last weekend. I was up at Daddy Flies. It was a blast. They treated me and my wife like family. We went up there for business, and they turned it into a vacation.
How far drive was that, Indiana to New York?
12 hours.
Whew.
We drove it. It was awesome. Really miserable. We went through a hailstorm 15 minutes after we left our house, and it just beat the crap out of the van.
I know.
And then it was smooth sailing. We both worked all day. Then the kids got off the bus. We took them to the in-laws' house for the weekend and drove all night. We got to my friend Nick Leiter's house in Pennsylvania as our stopping point at 4:30 in the morning. Crashed out for 2 hours, got up and drove to New York.
Oh, I can't wait for this self-driving car.
Sit
Sit in the back, tie flies, read, go to sleep.
Oh, yeah, get a little car vacuum.
I did see a little meme yesterday that said, with all these self-driving cars, pretty soon there's going to be a country song where a guy's singing about his car leaving him.
That's awesome.
What other tying tools do you utilize? Do you have a favorite UV type resin? Do you use that?
Yeah, I'm using Solaris.
There you go.
I love it. It's good. There's some secret squirrel stuff coming out I can't talk about, but I've been using it, and it's awesome. By the time this is out, it'll probably be out.
Do you got the new black, bone dry black?
Yep, you can't talk about it, though.
I can't. Well, this will come out. Uh-oh.
I know. It'll be out after, but you can't now.
Okay.
But it's awesome. I've been using it on my porcupine quills because I've been using the black resin over top of it just to thicken it up, making it stiff, because I clipped the points off those quills now because I got one stuck in me one day. It was terrible. The bone dry black is awesome because it's super, super water thin, and so it doesn't really ruin the look of that quill, but it gives it a lot of strength and a lot of a shine. It's awesome.
It's super glossy. It's like
I know.
Like I'm opening mine now. It's like the darkest black, shiny, liquid, inky. It looks like old-fashioned ink. when you would dip your pen in. That's what mine looks like. I'm playing with it now. Try not to get it on my new pants.
I know. We started talking about it. I got mine out too.
Yeah. I'm loving the new, these little colored ones.
Awesome.
The Cure Color resins.
Yeah, I got all of them.
Yeah, I love the Lexus color, the blue sparkly.
I've been putting those on the bottom of my divers and poppers.
Yeah, so why do you like divers so much?
Okay, the divers. So I have to put this out. Everybody wants to argue with me. So with a diver, I can do everything that I can do with a popper and more. I can slow chug it like I'm using a popper. I can hard pop it and like I'm using a little Rapala. The original floater Rapala just goes under the surface, floats back up. I can long strip rip and get it underwater, and I can just let it float back to the surface and pop it again if I want. You know how you get smallmouth and they're nosing at your fly?
Uh-huh.
And you got your popper and you pop it and he comes back, she comes back, and then they lose interest and then you pop it as they're leaving, they come back. Well, if you do that twice with a popper or with a diver, and that third time you let them get a little bit farther away and you start ripping that thing, get underwater, I just about always get smashed. It's like using a popper and then getting that action of getting smashed with a streamer. Then I don't think they're used to it because everybody's just using poppers all the time. But I'm also using this little size 4 mop frog.
Do you ever lose these flies that take so long? Like, how long does a diver take you to make?
About 25, 30 minutes now.
Okay. And if that gets caught, are you like going under after it?
Well, it depends on how far it goes down, but I've went after them. I've actually got one here in my home stretch of water. I lost on a log that was too far down because I was using a sinking line. And when the water got low in the summer, I found it and it was still good.
That's craftsmanship for you.
That's the partridge hook held together so well. I was excited.
Wow. I was with a client 2 weeks ago. It was the day we caught a guy shooting blue herons with a slingshot. So he's either going to jail or they're finding him a lot. But I was with my client and my anchor line was all twisted. So I backed up to a rock. I'm like, all right, you keep swinging for stripers. I'm going to jump out, untangle it. And I go take the carabiner and the pulley off, and they just slip off the rock into the water. And I reach down and I'm like, this is... Maybe in like 2 or 3 months, I'll go back and find it if the water drops. Mm-hmm. I was like, dude, that was like $20 worth of gear that just slid down there. I can't reach it.
I would have went after it. Yeah. How deep was it there?
I have no idea.
That's too deep.
I need one of those super magnets. There's a kid down the street that's got one. He goes to like piers and stuff and will find stuff.
That's cool. I got my kids what did I get him for the river? My sister actually bought it for my... For finding metal in the ground. I can't even think of the word.
Metal detector?
Yeah, I just said it. I'm so...
Apparently, some guy thought he found something and dug a 10-foot deep hole. He was picking up the metal in the toes of his boots.
Oh, that's awesome. They usually go to the river, and I'll be out fly fishing with the wife, and if they don't want to fly fish, they'll run around and look for treasure. They found some cool stuff. They found some, like, 1960s era cast iron that was enameled with no rust on it. Weird. The old ugly green. It was still good. It was pretty cool. I love cast iron anyway. They find randomness, and it just keeps them busy for hours.
What are the ages of your kids?
So Bear, who is my daughter, Adeline, she's 5, and Kurt's 9, Ryland's 10, and Malachi's 11. Wow. They're crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine. They outnumber you two.
They do. We just outpower them, so...
Right.
We own him. Our biggest thing is they'll look at us and say something off or something goofy, which they're everybody always compliments how polite our kids are. I was like, because I'm a terribly mean dad.
Yeah, our daughter went out to dinner with our neighbors, and they came back. They're like, oh, my gosh, she was so polite. Thank you. No, thank you, please. And I was like, pardon me?
Yeah.
She's like, no, she was an angel. And I was like, excuse me? Because here she's like, get me iced tea. And I'm like, oh, no, you do not talk to me like that.
Not today, girl.
No, not if you want iced tea. I made watermelon lime iced tea last 2 days. Celestial Seasonings has watermelon lime tea bags. It's really good.
I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to look them up.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I found it at our grocery store that's closing.
Trying to give up Mountain Dew, so I need something. And I love tea. But, oh yeah, Lee Barbi, my best bro. I was chatting with him right before I started chatting with you, but told me to ask you about the two fly tournament.
Yeah, so Team Barbi and Snowhite, which was not planned. We had a good time. I think he's the one that caught the 19-inch rainbow on the last cast.
I don't know. He said he caught so many fish in 1 hour. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, we were back in this hole that was just stock full of fish. We were throwing my bacon fly. It's the only streamer I'll use for trout. I remember he cleaned up, but I was just laughing all day about our names together.
Barbi Snowhite.
Yeah, and then he was started tying flies at the time, and then all of a sudden his flies just became like awesome. Like he was doing a pattern a day, and you could see the progression. And then one day you're like, damn, this dude is talented. Like he's put in the work and perfected his craft.
We started tying at pretty much the exact same time, except he was in Maryland and I was in Indiana. There's a little group of us veterans that did that, like Raymond Collette and John Demas been tying very, very short period, and Lee. I have a whole list somewhere, but yeah, it's crazy. Like Healing Waters has like flooded the fly fishing market with veterans who have ridiculous amount of attention to detail that are slow and methodical. I can't talk right now.
Do you think that comes from being in the military?
I think it does, because I'm absent-minded and crazy, but I can sit down at a vise and everything just falls together. Like I know exactly what I'm doing. I can look at a picture of a fish and say, I'm going to make that out of deer hair, and I'll do it. It's weird how we look at the world. I think it's got a lot to do with it, because, I mean, Lee gets asked, I get asked all the time. There's no way you've been tying for 3 years. And I'm like, there's no reason to lie about it.
You're like the chef that decided to make a souffle on their first try and nailed it.
Yeah. But we're not tying. We love the fish, but the flies that we get to fish are just sort of second to what we're doing. We're not doing it to become famous or Instagram famous or make money. We're doing it because we can set a device and really just forget about everything that you're thinking about.
What about your back and neck? Does that hurt when you're leaning over a vise, or do you not really feel it because you're distracted?
So high. I've got my table set so high where I tie at home that I don't have to lean forward. I'm just sitting straight up, and I've got a heat pad in a really comfy chair. My wife's got a lazy boy recliner in her desk. We got 4 tying desks in my tying office. And if I'm like, my back's really hurting, I want to be loungy, I can go sit at her tying desk and put my vise in my lap and recline and tie.
They used to make the vise that would sit on your chest. You could sit back and tie.
Oh, that would hurt my neck so bad. But sometimes my back does get stiff. I got to get up and stretch every couple hours. If I don't, I'll get stuck in my chair. That's a metaphor. It's just hard to get up sometimes.
Right.
I don't know the mental health help that you get from just being able to forget about everything for just a little bit of time is so valuable. And even if it did hurt my back or neck worse, I'd probably still do this, because when I'm doing it, I'm not thinking about my neck or back, or I'm not thinking about Afghanistan or Iraq or my buddies we didn't bring home. I'm just sitting there thinking about tying a fly. And it's unique when I'm tying flies for myself just for fun and just challenging myself, or when I'm tying them just to go fish with, or when I'm tying them for someone else. It's just the same thing. I'll be sitting there thinking about the fly, wondering where this person's going to take it or what they're going to catch on. It's cool. I sent a bunch of 50 bonefish, I don't remember what they're called, type of bonefish, Charlie. I just sent a bunch to Aruba with a guy, and I got the order on a Friday, or Friday night. This is Mother's Day weekend. And the shop guy was like, hey, this guy needs them by Friday or Sunday morning. And I was like, okay. He needs 50 of them. I was like, okay. And then Gary Filkins at our shop gave me everything I needed to tie it.
So when you say our shop, what are you referring to? Do you work at a shop?
Our local shop says Fly Masters of Indianapolis. It's an awesome shop. It's older. It's I think it's 29-year-old shop now, right here in Indiana, and it's crazy to think about the center of the Midwest. We don't have trout for 2.5 hours. You have to drive 2.5 hours in any direction. You can find trout, just not here. We've got a fly shop right in the middle of our city. We've got 3 now, technically, but that one's been here for the longest, and they're stocked. They got a great selection. If I need something, I can generally go there and find it if I have a weird order. And they're really good to me there.
With
Indianapolis, stop by and check them out.
Yeah.
Derek's super cool guy. John, all those guys are good.
When you're fishing, is it as therapeutic and distracting from your past as fly tying is?
It's probably more so. I've been obsessed with fishing since I was little, so finding the fish, finding what they want, and it's just an awesome puzzle you have to put together every time you go. Even if you know where they're at, they might just not want to deal with you today and not want to take anything you're giving them. You have to figure it out.
Do you have a winter fishery to keep you occupied in the winter?
Nope. I pretty much do fly fishing shows all winter long now. So that keeps me pretty busy. I didn't fish from November to March this year. It was pretty crazy. I used to tear smallmouth up year round until I listened to your smallmouth podcast, and I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, the cold water can damage them.
Yeah, I went out with before I joined the guiding service, Two Forks. Jason, I didn't know him. He messaged me and asked me if I want to go fishing, and I was like, yeah. And we went fishing. He sat on the oars, and I fished all day. It was good. It was fun. Some random guy just wants to take you fishing and get on the oars and go fish and do it.
That doesn't happen to me.
I know. It's the only time it's ever happened to me. It felt like it didn't feel like a job interview, but I think it was a job interview because I caught some smallmouth in February, 20 or 33-degree water. I caught several, and we were done. He's like, "Hey, you want a job?" At that time, I was like, I can, but not full time. I've got a job, and this past September, we just pulled the trigger on it. I quit and started SgtBassFisher.com, which is the worst decision ever because I quit my job to tie flies for bass at the end of bass season.
Right. Do you get benefits from your wife, or is that still included with the VA?
They got me it's all in the DAV system now, but they've got me rated at like 10%. It's a weird situation. There's a lot of politics in my situation with my back and neck injury. Because after I had my back and neck injury, they sent me to Iraq again.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is where I had my biggest head injury, and so there's a lot of why was he there in the first place going on, and no one wants to buck up to it. I guess I don't know. I stay out of that, and I just try to fly fish. I don't anticipate ever getting any back pay from that because it's an astronomical amount right now. Back to 2008, I think it's like $493,000 tax free. That if the DAV gets everything won, that I'll get, which I never will get, by the way. But I got a pretty great life. I got an awesome family, tying flies and fishing for a living, and I get to travel the country and teach people what I'm doing and talk to them and try to get kids involved. That's my biggest thing right now is pushing to get kids involved. My 5-year-old May, I can't say much else. She may have an article coming out in a major publication here soon.
Very cool.
She's obsessed with tying, and she's a little girl. And I try to explain that to the boys. I'm like, boys, I know that you're awesome tyers. It's like, Adeline's 5. She's going to get a lot more attention. That's the nature of the beast, guys. I was like, high five her and then try harder. I was like, Mom and Bear will pass all of us up if they really, really get into it.
Maybe she'll have her own podcast coming up soon. She can interview children fishers.
At the Sobug Roundup in Arkansas, I chatted with their board, and I was like, you guys got a kids tying area. I was like, but it's like doing the little safety pin spiders. I was like, there's like 4 kids now that's here that's under 9 years old that's tying ridiculously high level. I was like, how you got a featured tire, which I was one of them. They have 4 featured tires through the whole event, and then you get to talk and teach everybody something.
Did you get to meet Trad?
He wasn't there.
Oh man,
He didn't make it. I was really excited to meet him because we're on a couple teams that's the same. But no, I didn't see him. I met Dave Whitlock there. That was crazy. I got to sit down with Dave and chat for a pretty good while about deer hair and art. And we just hit it off. They invited us out to their place in Oklahoma, and then he wanted me to tie him a cardinal. And I didn't have time to tie him a cardinal because someone asked me to make an Arkansas Razorback out of deer hair. And I was like, well, I ain't got that collar. And I was wandering around before the show. Early one morning before I was starting to tie, and I sit down at these guys' booth, and they had a big Wapsie banner, and I was like sitting there chatting with them. They're like, hey, you're the guy that ties all those crazy deer hair flies. I was like, yeah. And they asked me to go grab them. So I went over and grabbed a couple of them, my giant raccoon and all that goofy stuff I do. I showed them, and they're like, I was like, yeah, someone told me to do an Arkansas Razorback, but I ain't got the right color hair. And the guy, his name's Mike Benton, was like, I might know a guy that can get you the deer hair. I was like, right on, who's that? He looked over at his buddy Joe, and I was like, where are you going to get it at? Like, I'll pay for it. I don't care. If you can get it here today. And he's like, you don't know? I'm like, I haven't a clue what you're talking about. He's like, well, my family owns Wapsie.
how about that?
I was like, well, that'll do.
Yeah,
do.
they started off dyeing all their hair in a washing machine back in the day.
They still are.
Really?
I did a factory tour or facility tour. You know, I stayed in his group, and they took me to the Primo strips, and it was like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's crazy. It's like a kid being in a candy store, legitimately. I like touched everything. If you buy a Primo strip from Wapsie in the next 5 months, I have touched it. I promise. But I went through all of them. I was like, oh, look at this one. Look at the thick hairs on this. Oh my gosh, this one's barred. I was like, oh, this is a misprint. This is a little off color. This is a great piece of hair. Because those off-colored ones, they're gold. It was really cool because they wanted the Arkansas Razorback that I was going to tie, which I'm only ever going to tie one. I've done it, and I'm not going to do it again. I had to design a fly to perfection in front of a crowd of people, a huge crowd of people. The Sobug Roundup is absolutely huge. If you ever make it down there, it's worth it. It's so fun. And everybody's got that awesome Southern accent, so it makes it even better.
When you tie one of those, how many, like, do you start with one and practice with it, and then you go to make your final one, or you just do that single one?
I just do it.
Damn.
All the posts of my birds, pretty much, besides the hummingbird, are all my first tries. And it's crazy how much attention I get. Like, my first kingfisher I posted got a little over 2,000 likes, which is astronomical to me. I know it's not really a big deal to some people, but I was like, holy cow, 2,000 likes. I've only got 5,000 followers, and I got 2,000 likes on one fly. But it was crazy. I got the Arkansas Razorback done, and it was really hard. The little squiggly tail it was really hard, and then the tusks was really hard, and then designing the head shape with everybody watching. Mike George was there, and he was watching me, and that was really stressful because he's one of the best he's like the best in the world when it comes to, the deer hair art stuff. It just was really nerve-wracking. I seriously had 30 or 40 people around me at times watching me design a fly, which I'm used to doing in my bedroom, or not my bedroom, but my tying room, and taking my sweet time and just sitting on it and thinking about it. But I had to do it, and I got it done in 6 hours. But the tail really threw me off. I took a bodkin and I shaved some red pine squirrel, and I shaved it down to where there was just leather and a little tuft of hair. Then I wrapped it around a bodkin and took some Solares Flex and rubbed it all over the tail, and then I cured it. And then I pulled it off with a little corkscrew, so I tied that in.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely incredible that you thought of that on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. It just came to me, and then the tusk. I was like, what can I use for a tusk? So I got up and I just excuse me. I got up from my desk and I just walked around for about 10 minutes and looking at everything I could at the shop, the little shop they had there, and everybody else's materials. I was just looking around for what I could find and buy. And I walked into the concessionary and I just like stopped. I don't know why I thought of it, but I was like, I have a whole bundle of pheasant tails. I can cut off the tips of them, of the quill, and use them as teeth. And I did. I went back and I used them as those big old tusks, and it looked awesome.
I'm looking at some now. So the little white hollow tapered tips on them.
Yeah, it turned out to be perfect little tusk, and it just came to me.
See, I would have gone with like a fingernail clipping.
See, I thought about that. My fingernails weren't long enough, and the one lady that was there that had them long enough wouldn't cut them off. I'm just kidding. I made that up. It was pretty fun. I love traveling. I at the same time I hate it. I hate being in my car all the time, but I love getting out to meet people. I got to meet Rick Takanashi and Dave Whitlock. I'm going to be out in Pennsylvania twice next month. I'll be there for 7th, 8th, and 9th with the Donegal chapter of Trout Unlimited. They just asked me if I wanted to come out and fish. Said they'd take care of everything, and I don't have to do anything. Just show up and fish with their veterans. I told them I'd bring my vise and do some classes while everybody's around the fire drinking beer if that's what they want. That's cool with me. I love tying. I love teaching.
Drink a Mountain Dew while you're at it.
Oh, yeah, I'm drinking Mountain Dew right now. I'm trying to quit, so hopefully next time you see me, I'm not drinking Mountain Dew. Then we got a show, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, June 29th for the Pennsylvania Fly Fishing Association. This is they're the new nonprofit. They're trying to get more kiddos out, which is something I can really get behind, so I got involved. My friend Nick Leiter's running it. It's going to be a big thing for me because, for one, I got Lee Barbi flying into my house, and we're going to drive out there together.
Oh, road trip.
Road trip. My wife's going. We're going to do some fishing prior to that. And then there's a little girl. There's some secret school stuff going on with the book, but there's this little girl I wanted to help us write the foreword of our book. She's 8 years old, and she's quite the little character. Her name's March Brown-Eyed Dunn on Instagram, but she's real hardcore. She's 8 or 9, I think, and she's wrote an article for Dunn Magazine, and she's hardcore into fly fishing and tying and getting girls involved in it. It just really struck me, and so I talked to her dad about helping us with this book that I got asked to help with, and without talking to the guys in charge or the editor, I just did it on my own accord. And they loved it. And so I asked her dad. They're in West Texas, and so I was like, hey, if you guys happen to be in Pennsylvania, June 29th, we got the show that you can be at. They said, we're going to Maine that week, and so we'll be driving through. So I was like, no way.
Heck yeah, little meet and greet.
So yeah, we're going to get her out there and promote her a little bit because she's awesome. And she's adorable and fly fishes and teaches real well. So I'm excited to meet them. So it's going to be an awesome little event. And there's going to be a showing of the fly fishing film tour there. So it's going to be a great weekend. And then after that, I'm going to try to fish with one of my buddies that lives out there that's real popular in Pennsylvania. Everybody knows him. I won't say his name right now. And hopefully I can talk him into going up to Deddy Fly Shop with me, Lee, and Megan, because we're going to finish our trip up there fishing to Delaware with Joe Fox and Bryn.
Nice. Anytime you're swinging through the nation's capital, any plans for that?
Hey, I tell you what, when we drove up there the other day, it said like Washington, D.C., like so far out, and I was like, man, I need to call Rob.
Yeah, you're going to be up in the 29th. Is that at the Yellow Breeches?
That's at Carlisle.
Yeah, that's under 3, but 2.5 hours maybe. But we are going to be in Ohio then. That's why I can't make it. We're driving to Columbus on the 29th.
Okay. So I'll be driving back through Columbus on the 2nd.
Ooh.
Ely and Megan, but it's going to be really late because
we'll make you some Russian food.
We're gonna fish all day on the 2nd. All day. We're gonna fish all day, and then we're gonna have dinner, and then we're gonna drive 12 hours home.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I didn't want Lee traveling on the 4th, and so really I was like, get your plane ticket for the 3rd, and we'll drive home the 2nd.
Right. I always fish on July 4th. That's one of my things.
I'm not good with crowds, and so I definitely won't be fishing this weekend.
And what about the sounds of it?
It used to bug me. It doesn't anymore.
Okay.
It bugs my daughter, so that's an excuse for me to stay indoors with her. I'm fine if I'm watching it. If my neighbors start popping them off a couple days earlier, a couple days after,
Does it make you jump at all?
It does. I got a funny story about that. One of my friends at the factory that I worked at, he was a Force Recon Marine, or he was a MARSOP Marine. And
Wow.
he's one of the guys I would never mess with. He's absolutely brilliant and creepy brilliant when it comes to military tactics and pretty much stalking and surveillance. It was raining, and we were both team leaders. We were both making fun of all our team because it was raining and they were freaking out because they had to run to their car. And we're like, yeah, be a man, walk. It ain't going to hurt you. And then a transformer blew. And we were both on our bellies crawling through the mud, freaking out. Because it was like a pool, like 50
That's instinct for you.
Oh, yeah, we did not miss a beat. I went to the grass. He went underneath the truck, and yeah, it was I'm
sorry you guys still have to, live with that, though. That's something you're going to have to deal with forever.
I don't know. I mean, if something startles you like that, transformer blowing up over your head don't happen too often.
Right.
But, it was just funny because we were making fun of our team, and then they turned around and got to make fun of us for a really long time.
Yeah.
Because it was our lunch, so we had to finish the rest of our shift with soaking wet with mud all over us.
Ugh.
Well, I did. He stayed in the parking lot because he's smarter than I am.
All right. I think I'm going to ask you some random questions now.
Shoot.
Is there a fish species you won't target?
No.
Do you have any fishing superstitions on like the way to the stream?
Nope.
Where would you like to fish if you were stuck in your own Groundhog Day? So every day you woke up to the same spot to fish.
I don't even care as long as there's fish there, I guess.
Is there a worse place you fished?
Worst place. I don't know. I'm weird I love fishing. I don't care if I'm catching fish. Brookville. I hate Brookville in Indiana. That's our only trout stream, and I've never caught a trout there. I went there like 10 times. And I just get my butt kicked there all the time. I've still not caught a brown trout. And my first brown trout that chased one of my streamers was at Brookville. I got it all on GoPro, too. It's funny. I see this beautiful flash of butter chase after this little white zonker strip. And as soon as I see it, I set the hook, man. That fish was at least 8 inches away from my fly. But I was excited. I knew it was a butter bar. But I don't like Brookville.
All right. What would you tell someone that's just getting started in fly tying?
Do it because you love it. Don't do it because everybody thinks it's cool. You're going to progress a lot faster if you're doing it just for yourself and doing your own thing. Do what you like to do. Don't do it for the followers. That's just silly. And I know guys that have a lot of followers and they're just miserable because they have to tie 5 flies a day, or their followers are going to get mad. Like, I don't even care. I haven't tied till today for a couple of weeks. I've been so busy. I try to get in here and tie, but I'm not worried if I don't get something on my social media account. I'm worried about getting out there fishing or getting behind my vise.
Do you have a favorite fly fishing author?
Oh, man. I've read so many books. I like Joe Humphrey's books on. He has a book that I've been reading on trout. It really helped me learn about hatches. I'm not good at trout because I don't have trout around me, so it helped.
I love his bit about smushing your nymph in like the algae and muck under a rock.
Yeah.
So it smells like a bug that lives where it's supposed to live.
Yeah, I do that with bluegill flies because of that.
Yeah, we caught some big bluegill yesterday, like fighting on the reel on a 5-weight big. I caught a pumpkin seed the other day that was bigger than my size 10 flip-flop.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
Rylan, which is our middle boy, he caught the biggest pumpkin seed I ever seen on a bobber rig like 2 years ago, and I was like, man, that could have been me.
I'm telling you, that's why I don't want to swim in fresh water. Bluegill
Dude,
and pumpkin seeds,
and they bite, man. They if you let them just bite your thumb, they've got some muscle in them jaws.
Yeah.
Not so much bluegill, but those shell crackers do.
What's the strangest thing you found while fishing?
My kiddos found a Halloween skull half buried in the sand at a river, and I was out fly fishing, and
that's freaky.
this was last spring or fall, I don't remember. It was last summer. Anyway, Bear was 4 at the time, and she held it up over her head and was like, "Pirate treasure!" And I looked over, and it just, from 50 yards or 50 feet, 50 yards, how far I was out.
She looked like Hamlet.
It looked like she was straight up holding a human skull that had, because it just was crushed on one side and had dirt all over it. Like, it just dug it up, and I was like, I lost it for a second. I was like, what?
Our neighborhood pool, and there's someone that listens to the podcast that doesn't like me talking about the pool, but we've got a sand volleyball pit, and I want to bury some bones in it because the kids just digging it all day long. And I just want to bury an arm or hand bone from a Halloween display and just be sitting there waiting for some kid to pull it out and go running to their parent.
That's awesome.
That's on my list of things to do this summer. Pool opens on Saturday. Woo!
Oh, that's awesome. You gotta set a GoPro up somewhere and videotape that.
Yeah. What is your most unusual fly tying material? Would that be the monkey? Or do you got something that's better than capuchin?
I don't know. I guess that's something that I've never seen anyone else have. But that's pretty weird. Yeah, that's probably it. Groundhog tail. I have some groundhog tail right in front of me. I'm using it on this pattern.
Do you have a dog in your house? Do you have a pet dog?
What?
Do you have a dog?
Yeah.
Does it go after all this stuff?
No, I have a baby gate in my room. So he can't get through the door.
I trip over baby gates. I can never open them, so I always fall. I couldn't have that. But our dog, he just kind of paws at the drawer of cowtails and bucktails, but he never gets into them.
I give Ghost, our dog's name's Ghost, I give him the natural Primo strips, the leather to chew on.
Yeah.
He loves it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, you don't use the stuff with collar because they acid dye and it could hurt them. But the natural stuff, that's fine. Natural collar, that soft leather is real good for their teeth, especially.
Who's your favorite person to fish with?
Megan, my wife.
Nice. She'll be happy to hear that if she listens.
If she was good fishing, I could fish more often.
Right or left hand retrieve?
On the reel?
Yeah.
I don't care. I do both. Whatever. I got reels with either or. I don't really mess with it.
All right. And the last of this section of questions, if you had a superhero power to make you a better angler, what would you choose?
Oh, man. I knew this question was going to come up. I should have thought about it. I'd read their minds so I know what they want, so I can tie flies for that.
Dig it. All right. Are you related to anyone famous?
Not that I can recall.
What do you put on your hot dogs, ketchup or mustard?
Mustard. Sauerkraut.
Do you have a good ghost story?
Yes. Muscatatuck Urban Training Center, a place I worked in Indiana when I was enlisted. I was in the Guard then, and it's an old insane asylum city that they decommissioned and gave to the military, and we turned it into a urban environment, Iraq, Afghanistan training facility. It was all powered on steam, so they have these huge steam tunnels, and that place is crazy haunted. I heard one of our younger guys hollering at me when I was in the tunnel, and so I went down there and looked for him, and I thought he was supposed to be asleep, racked out for his next shift. Yeah, the video camera showed him going in to his rack and not coming out till he was supposed to, but he was in the tunnel on the camera as well.
Do-do-do.
It was two
Creepy.
places at once. Impossible.
Yikes.
But that place was creepy. You would be in the tunnels and it'd be toasty warm, and then all of a sudden it would just get ice cold where you can see your breath, and then it would go away.
That's the Dementors, man.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter is so obsessed. Well, all the kids are obsessed with Harry Potter. My daughter wants to change her name to Hermione. You know, she fights me about it all the time, and so she's like, I could catch so many fish if I was Hermione. I'm like, shut up, Bear. You can either be Adeline or you can be Bear. But it's cute. Like, we'll be waiting on the bus in the morning, and the kids will be out there saying spells and being goofy, and it just cracks me up. They
That's
like
funny.
Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. That's their thing. I can't complain about that.
What's your favorite Harrison Ford movie?
Star Wars.
Nice. Preference for which episode?
The first episode.
All right. Episode 4. What's your most irrational phobia?
I don't think I'm scared of anything. I don't have any phobias. I'm an idiot. I'm not scared of anything.
Do you have
That's
any?
not.
Do you have any non-fishing superstitions to go with no phobias?
Not really. I'm like a super logical and rational person. I don't really have any superstitions, I guess.
Where's the best sandwich you've ever eaten?
Oh man, it was on a fishing trip. I can't remember. I also have short-term memory loss, so it's hard for me to remember some things. Gosh. I think I was in Missouri. Someone took me out to... I'll get back to you on that, but someone took me out to lunch in Missouri at Bennett Springs, and I had one of the best sandwiches ever there.
Could you make a sandwich fly out of deer
Yeah.
hair? Like a BLT or a hoagie?
That would be really hard, but
Sounds delicious, though.
I like a challenge.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Don't quit till I'm dead.
All right.
I guess. I mean, that's pretty blunt, I reckon.
It's a good one. All right. Well, Joe, that sums up my questions. Anything I forgot to ask you?
I don't think so.
All
But
right.
you know, thanks for having me on here. It was it's pretty awesome. It's pretty unrealistic that I've only been doing this for 3 years, and I'm getting to do what I didn't know I loved 3 years ago.
Yeah. And you're
It's
doing it
okay.
very well.
Thank you. I've got some things I want to get out to you too. Some flies I want you to try out for shad.
Okay. We got till next year.
I know. I got plenty of time. I got a lot of flies on my plate right now. I'm getting ready to. Thursday, the kids get out of school, and so I'll be home with them every day, either fishing or tying flies. So I'm going to start. I got some commercial things when we start doing. So I'm going to tie 300 or 400 nymphs a day.
Wowzers.
It's going to be miserable.
What do you listen to when you're tying?
I listen to everything from insane death metal to John Fogerty. I listen to it all. Country. I don't listen to rap.
I've been getting
But-
back into Catherine Wheel.
Yeah, I mostly listen to podcasts. So you get your podcast and Orvis. Spend a lot of time on them, and
Fantastic.
so
All right,
you
so-
get a lot of hits from me.
Nice. Where can we find you online besides Sgt Bass Fisher on Instagram?
Well, my Facebook, you can add my personal one, Joe Jackson. I try to go through and delete all the non-fly fishers once a week because I keep hitting 5,000. And or if anybody posts anything drug related, I'm just like, oh, I can delete you.
Drug
So-
related, like
Yeah, people from my past, from when I was people I grew up with. So if they post anything weird like that, I just delete them because I don't want to see it. But
and then you get the Russian hoochie mamas that like you on Instagram, and you're like, who are these people?
yeah, and that's crazy. I like Instagram because there's like zero politics on it, and I hate politics these days. I just try to stay away from it and stay on my vice. So
Right on, dude.
all I got to deal with on Instagram is seeing nothing but fly fishing stuff, and then the sponsored hoochie mamas.
Yeah. My wife will pick up my Instagram and go through it. She's like, oh my God, this is so boring. I'm like, I need a non-fishing one. Like I just want to follow gardeners. I would love to just have a whole Instagram just for garden porn.
I'm weird because I follow a bunch of gardening and mushrooming and foraging, and then I got these fossil ones, and I like reading about fossils. I'll see a random fossil, be like, oh, I gotta go look up this kind of trilobites, and I want to know about it.
Nice.
It's weird. I read a lot when I'm just somewhere where I can't tie or fish. I just sit there on my phone and read. I have a whole library of books I've been collecting. I haven't got to start on them.
Have you ever read Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything?
No.
I'll send it to you. I'll send you the audio file.
That sounds good to me.
Listen when you tie. I'll do that right. Whoa. Hit the mic. All right, I'll do that right now. So how about I go do that, you go hang out with your family, and hopefully we can bump into each other in July.
All right, sounds good.
Fantastic, Sgt Bass Fisher. Thank you so much.
Take it easy, brother.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com. This podcast is brought to you by Freestone Productions at freestoneproductions.com.